Welcome to today's coffee talk from Planet Fair. As we do every Friday, we will be talking for 8 minutes about, with a cup of coffee in our hands, which I actually have here already. And we will be talking about the fastest ways to equal opportunity and fair pay. So I'm Henrike von Platen, and I'm talking with my friend
Margrét Vilborg Bjarnadóttir.
Where are you today, Margrét, having your cup of coffee?
I'm at home actually, so not in the same small wide room as last week.
That's true. It looks a lot better like that. I like it. And I remember when we were talking last week, you left me a bit hanging in the end because you mentioned some court cases, interesting court cases about one was New Zealand and the other one I don't remember, but you will. What was that about?
Yeah, so remember last week we were really talking about how do we evaluate jobs, and we were talking about the different ways that we evaluate jobs, and that there's this huge push towards equal pay for work of equal value, which is then, trying to compensate equally valued work. So, and that's where we kind of left things hanging. And the other court case that you didn't remember was for the Scottish city of Glasgow. So in 2006, they adopted a job evaluation scheme, right? So the total goal was to ensure that men and women, got equal pay for jobs of the same value, right? So, however, there was a structural problem with the scheme that they adopted, which resulted in women workers and, this typical female-dominated roles, such as home care, were paid significantly less per hour than those in typical male-dominated roles. Such as bin collectors. So you can think about these might require or be of the same value. So the courts actually, so they sued, and the court sided with the 14,000 plaintiffs. And to date, the city has paid out around 700 million US dollars.
That's good. That sounds fair. That sounds really fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
The system is really in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the biggest takeaway from this Glasgow story is really that it highlights the importance that if we go this route, right, this route of, measuring value, then we also have to translate that to our compensation. So you have to align your job evaluation scheme with your compensation decisions, because if not, then you're claiming or saying that you have equally valued job, but then you pay them very differently.
Yeah. And you have the issue with the points all the time. I know you've been talking about points on other situations as well, and I had the other day too. And you said that you were going to have a meeting as well with inside this topic. What did it end up with? How did that go this morning?
Yeah.
No, it was yesterday.
Yeah. Yesterday morning. No, it was a super interesting conversation. So we've been talking to a lot of organizations that are taking this route and trying to understand, okay, how are they managing? Because there is this mismatch between, the evaluation schemes and what they can do. So the conversation I had yesterday morning was with an organization in Europe that has most of their workforce is unionized under union contracts and paid by those union contracts, right? But then the HR manager, is under this, point evaluation schema. And obviously there needs to be they need to talk to each other, right? The compensation and the schema. So what the route C has taken is then really not to think about, okay, what do we value for our organization and make that be reflected in the schema, but rather, how do the union contracts pay? And then let's translate that into the point schema. So then really, that's one way to manage. So then you're saying, okay, we evaluate everything based on the union contracts and their clauses, but it kind of defeats the purpose of the whole point of, equal work for equal pay for work of equal value, right?
Yeah, it's one of my, not to say favorites, this union topic actually, because if you look at the union contracts in Germany, there are so many and they are so often so old-fashioned with values in there that don't even exist anymore, where you have like jobs that don't exist, and those that do exist because they might be new now are not in there. So you can't really evaluate with those contracts as a basis something that is not inside those contracts. It's sort of in itself, it's not coherent, and it doesn't work. And there hasn't been a court case on it, but I don't know if we talked about it at that one stage about the German equal pay, about the transparency law, like they call it here, the Entgelttransparenzgesetz, where actually you are supposed to do like, they tell you that you should maybe do an analysis. It's not that you have to, but it's like optionally said, but they take away everything that's unionized. It's not included. It was left out at a certain point when that came, which is really awkward in a way. How do you go about that? I mean, how do you do? I remember Iceland. I remember even Lovísa, where we did lots of talks with Landspítali, who we have the connection with as well, saying that they had 31 or 32 unions inside those processes, and they managed to do that. So it's possible. So I would say, I mean, hearing like what you said from yesterday, it's like, how can we have hope about the unionized ones?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a silver bullet. There rarely is a silver bullet when it comes to equal pay. But if you're thinking, I mean, and this is especially true in Europe, if we want to move towards paying for equal value, well, then that needs to feed into directly these union talks and union contracts, and it can't be the same increases across all unions, because then we don't move forward. If the goal is, equal pay for work of equal value. Yeah.
Yeah, you have these union contract changes that takes ages, but it's possible. I think it's just a matter of having the courage to actually do it from the unions. That's something I would wish for. Yeah. I think we still have a minute or so. Because I remembered New Zealand better than Glasgow, as you noticed at the beginning. What was the difference in New Zealand? Do you have a very short version for me?
Yeah, if you want the 30-second brief on the New Zealand.
Please.
Then, so there was a court case that really brought salary increases to tens of thousands of female workers in female-dominated job roles, and the fundamental argument was the same. So it was, if caring for the elderly requires similar skills or similar level of skills as gardening, one cannot pay the gardeners, this is typically a male-dominated job role, higher salaries than the caregivers, which is, as we know, the typical female-dominated job role. So that was the 30-second version of that.
Now that's so good, because I think that the good part about this is when you have companies sometimes that have maybe not those unionized contracts and that decide by themselves, and they are big enough so that they have employees doing those different kinds of jobs. They actually have the power to decide that these certain different jobs that they have are valued the same. And I think that would be a great start, to see companies really coming out and talking about this when they have done it. But because I know some have, they just don't talk about it. Like, how do they actually value? And then, that would be great.
Yeah.
Which leaves us already with 8 minutes. I mean, this is so fast, but so much content, and the coffee is not even empty yet. I mean,
I didn't even have a sip.
This is incredible, but our time is over, and we promised to stick to 8 minutes, so we should stop at this point. And I'm not sure, but I know that there are some interesting meetings coming up at the beginning of next week. So maybe our cliffhanger for next week is quite an open-ended one, because I'm not sure what we're going to be talking about. Or do you have any hint?
No, I have.
Okay, then. Well, then I would say, let's have the last sip of coffee and meet again next week, Margrét.
Yep. Have a wonderful Friday.
Thank you.
Bye.